Hello, my name is Marty Rawson. I'm your host here at Spirit Alliance. And today we have a very special guest. This wonderful lady happens to be a good friend of mine, and she is very gifted. I am very glad to be able to bring to you Heather Fisher. She is a Metatron color healing practitioner. She's a medium. She is a Reiki master, and she incorporates crystals into just about everything she does. Welcome, Heather.
Thanks so much, Marty, for having me here. I'm honored to be here and thanks for this opportunity.
Right off the bat, I was hoping to maybe ask you just a couple of questions about how you got involved in mediumship and channeling and all of this.
So, I did not intend to get into mediumship at all. I was very kind of against it. But even as like a small child, I would interact with fairies a lot. I would interact with other divine beings that were always around, elementals. I was very familiar with spirit and with speaking to spirit and all of that. Fast forward into being a teenager and wanting to fit in, I kind of closed down all of those gifts and went through some kind of tough times with my gifts coming in and out. And I was constantly shutting them down because I kind of didn't want to be redirected by spirit. I was enjoying being a rebel and getting into a lot of trouble and and doing all of that. But at some point in my late 30s, is one of the ways spirit talks to me is they'll just put up random things like on YouTube, things that I'm not searching for. And all of these channeling videos started popping up in my feed. And I thought, this is really weird because these people are crazy. Like, why is this coming up in my feed? And then I started getting the message, "Hey, we would like you to consider this." And I'm like, "I'm not doing that." But at the same time, I've always been very interested in metaphysical things. And I started hanging out with people that were channels. And it gave me a different perspective because I knew these people and I knew they weren't crazy. So it's been slowly just unraveling. And again, it wasn't something I tried to have happen. It's just sort of happened over, well, really pretty steadily for like the last probably 8 years or so.
About the time that we met,
Yep.
would have been about when it started. All right.
And you, Marty, you're one of my biggest teachers. I need to have you listed on my website. I've learned so much from you. And you were actually one of the people that really inspired me to connect deeper with spirit. So you definitely were a huge impact.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, that touches me. Did your family support your interactions with the fairies and stuff when you were young?
I think they thought that I was just being a kid, just pretending. I also didn't talk about it a whole lot around them because I could sense that it wasn't very welcomed. That was just my perception. I grew up not in a super religious family, but my family was LDS, and like most religions, you're not supposed to talk to beings because they're demons or whatever. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all
so
know that story. We're so used to that here that LDS means Latter Day Saint. It's the Mormon Church, and so around here, that's so common lingo. We don't realize that it's not common lingo everywhere else.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, I think they just thought she's just being a weird kid. But my parents over the years, it's interesting because I know my dad especially is very gifted, but he won't talk about it. But there have been moments throughout my life where they've opened up, and I sometimes wonder, were they opening up to help me feel better? Or were they really telling me about sincere stories? Because my mom talked of seeing angels. My dad talked about seeing like galactic, well, he didn't call them galactic beings, he called them aliens and other things. I would call them galactic beings, but I think it does run in the family, and especially on my dad's side of the family. I feel that there's some really strong gifts on that side of the family that are, I think, have been just buried over the years.
Well, it almost sounds to me like your gifts have given them permission to open up a little bit. That's pretty cool.
It's been really cool, and I think my brother's very gifted too. He doesn't talk about it and wants nothing to do with it, so it's kind of interesting just seeing everybody's reactions, but I know now my parents love me and they're happy. If I'm happy, they're happy, so
Well, that's good. That's cool. Okay. So, am I correct in saying that one of the main beings that you channel is Metatron?
yeah, he's one of my main guides.
All right. Yeah. I love Metatron. When I very first heard his name, I knew that I knew him, and I knew that he was absolutely wonderful. It was not a weird name to me at all. It was very familiar, and it's like he was already family. And so I've always felt just this closeness to him. And I call him in a lot when I'm setting up sacred space and doing any important spiritual work. So yeah, he's wonderful. So how did you get introduced to Metatron?
It's interesting. I think he's been one of my main guides my whole life, but I didn't really put that together until I think it was 2021. I was in a meditation and I just heard this booming voice, and this booming voice I've heard many times throughout my life. It came through and said, "This is Metatron, and I'm working with you now. I'm gonna be one of your main guides." And I just remember thinking, "Shit, like this is not." I knew he was gonna push me out of my comfort zone. And I knew that's why he was there. I can't get away with anything. Like I can't, he holds me to it. So that's when he officially announced himself. But as I have been reflecting back over my life, I started noticing that I think this was Metatron. Like, for instance, as a kid, there was this giant bird, huge bird, that would follow me around. It was kind of like my little guardian. I mean, it was huge. Like, I don't even know how big, huge. And I always felt very safe with this bird around, and it was very encouraging. And then when I hit around 3rd, 4th grade, I remember I was at school out in the playground and I heard this bird talk to me and it said, "It's time for me to go now, but you'll be just fine and I'll be close by, but you won't see me." And I just remember thinking, "Oh man, like you can't leave me." And it was gone. And I think that was
Wow,
Metatron. I think that was him.
that's pretty cool. So would you be willing to maybe do a channeling for us?
Yeah, I would be happy to do a channeling. Let's see see if I can
Okay.
calm my nerves just a moment here, and we'll see what Metatron would like to what he'd like to say. And I just wanna say when I channel, it's a combination of trance channeling and then me repeating what they're saying. So, the trance channeling is fairly new for me, so it just dear beings, this is Metatron, and I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very pleased to be here. I would like to bring up fear, and um, fear can be very motivating, but fear, as many of you know, cuts out source. It cuts out your ability to communicate with us, and I am available to anyone. I am available to speak to anyone. I'm available to guide anyone. You just need to take a moment and sit with some of your fears, dear beings. We will never scare you. We will never bring fear to you. In fact, we bring in a lot of peace. We bring in a lot of well being. And we encourage you to reach out to us and any of us, the angelic realm, myself, the fairy realm, galactic light beings. There's so many different beings to connect with on this side. We're here to bring you divine guidance. We're here to bring you healing. We're here to bring you comfort. We're here to bring you joy and a deeper connection to what is real, to what is true. And we look forward to communicating with you more. I got a little nervous there.
Well,
Um,
no, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Would it be possible to maybe ask a question or two?
yeah, sure.
Okay. One of the questions that I've always had, and this is my own personal question, which I talked to you about previously, and it's just a gut feeling that I have had since hearing Metatron's name the first time. Most people refer to him as an archangel, and I have always felt that he was actually different than an archangel, that he was one of the Elohim Lords of Light. And I know that they don't have the egos that we have, and it's not a hierarchy like humans try to make it. And I understand all of that. But I've just always thought of Metatron as one of the Lords of Light. And I'm wondering, is that correct?
That's interesting because I was asking him about this last night. I said, if you were to put labels on yourself, what labels would you use? And so I'm gonna just read to you what he said because I found it interesting. He says, I am a gatekeeper, the keeper of all that is, all that has been, and all that will be. I am an overseer, guardian of the heavenly realms. I am a keeper of wisdom. I'm a keeper of shadows. I'm a keeper of all that is. I am a creator. I am a guide to all that seek. I am a guide to ancient wisdom. I am the keeper of thrones. No being crosses into this realm without me seeing. I am a guardian of the threshold. I am in place by God. And when was saying that, I thought this is interesting because when I always ask beings to show me how their true form or to show me how they like to appear. And when I saw Metatron, he's a huge energy and he's like this undulating light, like he's constantly changing light and then he changes into different shapes and different geometric shapes. And I saw him with all of these eyes, like thousands of eyes on him. And I didn't realize this until later. And he mentions I'm the keeper of thrones. And I heard somebody talking about thrones and saying how they had all of these eyes all over them. I'm not quite sure what thrones do, but I thought that was really interesting. Like you, Marty, I've never felt like he was an archangel. And so I've always felt weird when I say archangel. And the reason why I say that is when I've worked with angels, what I've noticed is they don't deviate from their path. Like they have like a set job, a set energy that they serve, and they stay with that energy. And what I've noticed with Metatron is he's all over the place. He's, all sorts of things. He doesn't there doesn't seem to be one energy that he that he serves, like he serves all many energies, and how he said he was emplaced by God. I find that interesting too, because often when I see him or I'm channeling him, God's right there too. And vice versa, when I'm talking to Source, talking to God, Metatron is often there. So I find that interesting.
Well, the
So,
definition that he gave, I don't think I could give a better definition for what I call a Lord of Light. I mean,
okay.
he said he was a creator, and that's what the Elohim helped to do, was to create this universe and this multiverse. And they are working right so perfectly in tune with first source and center of all that is, that it's just phenomenal. And so with the gatekeeper and all of this that he said there, that was beautiful. So yeah, it confirmed my feelings. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, he's awesome.
I think it's interesting. He's never said, I'm not an archangel. He's never said that, but he's never said, I'm an archangel.
Right.
I'm not familiar with the Elohim. I hear people talk about the Elohim, so maybe you could share a little bit about that with me?
My understanding is that before a local universe is created, a theme or plan is put into the etheric record as to what this is. And for instance, our local universe, the theme is polarity, where we have the light and the dark, male, the female, the hot, the cold, the whole thing, so that we can experience such a contrast. And Source has this idea, uh, this plan. Since really all is one, he has created aspects, she has created aspects of itself that help literally program the unmanifested potential energy of a void that is going to become this local universe. And they're the ones that literally refract the light of source into this unmanifested potential energy. And that is what creates the what we call the Big Bang, but it's actually all done with light of the creator. And that comes into this unmanifested potential energy, which explodes and is programmed instantaneously. And it is the Elohim Lords of Light that do this, and then they stay and are literally the gatekeepers, the ones who truly have dominion over the whole thing. Okay. And so, yeah, that his definition was absolutely perfect with my understanding of what the Elohim Lords of Light do. That's the name that I'm going to attach. I don't know if it's who knows with our human minds and language and everything if we can ever get it totally right. But that's the closest I've come to it.
And I really like that. And he's saying that that is correct. He's saying whatever you want to call him, that's fine. And it's interesting because some people get really caught up with like, where does he come from? Like, I want to know all these things. And spirit is they're just like, it's not that important. You guys are getting distracted with things that don't really matter, like names and things like that. The great thing about me is I'm horrible with names, so I just stopped asking like who's who. And I get to know people, I call them people, beings by their frequency. So I always know who's coming in just by how they feel. But some of them I don't know who they are. I don't know what their names are. Some I can tell are angels because I've gotten to know them. Some I can tell are galactic beings because their energy is different. But yeah, I don't know their names. It's really interesting though, because people get really hung up on wanting to know the backstory, kind of like they're a character or something.
Well, we humans, we really like to have neat little boxes to put everything in and have our definitions. And it's, at first it serves a good purpose to help understand the the layout of how the upper realms work. And then eventually you get to the point where you realize, wow, they were right. It really doesn't matter. I call him Lord Metatron, but I knew that he wouldn't be hung up with labels and stuff. But this is the first opportunity I've had to actually ask somebody and ask Metatron uh,
Yeah,
if my gut feelings was right.
it
And
is.
I have to believe, and I'd like to maybe get confirmation on this, that because I believe that at least my higher self has a close relationship with him, because otherwise I couldn't have known who he was and felt so close to him instantly.
Let's ask him. Dear being, Marty, we have had many existences together. We've had many lifetimes together. Metatron, Lord Metatron, as you say, we have had many existences together. We have had many connections. And once you know a frequency, once you know a being from other incarnations, you don't forget them. You remember them. You remember their energy. You you remember their frequency. I am connected to you. We have been connected to you. And when I say we, I mean source, God, the angelic realm. There are so many beings on this side and so many beings that I'm connected with and I work with every day to bring peace, to bring harmony, to bring awareness. My biggest passion is bringing awareness to humans, awareness of their full potential, awareness of their greatness, of their holiness, of their light, the remembrance that they are creators. You are all creators. You are not separate from me or source or the angelic realm. And we are here to assist you, dear beings. We are here to increase your light, and we are here to bring awareness to your light.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think the only other question that I can think of is because we are in such turbulent times right now. And I say turbulent, but to me, very recently, things are feeling much better because I've been going through ascension symptoms like you would not believe. It's been a rough ride the last little while, and I know a lot of people have had a rough ride in every aspect, um, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It's just been rough. I really have a lot of optimism for the future. I think things are going to be much better than what most people are thinking right now. I think we've come much farther than what most people are thinking. But is there any words of wisdom, any advice that he would have to share with our audience for the highest good of all concerned? The whole point of this is to serve Earth and humanity. I'd like to give him the opportunity to put his voice to that.
Okay. I sometimes get nervous about what he's going to say. Ah, yes. We are going to give the advice that we give this dear being quite often, especially when she gets off track. And that is to stay in your lane. And we are saying this with much love. What is your lane? Your lane is your life. The people that you deal with every day, your home, your job, your kids, your career, your light. Stay in your lane. And when things get tough, when things feel overwhelming, that is when you really need to bring it in and stay in your lane. Dear beings, you did not come here to take on the whole world. You came here to shine your light. You came here to create. You came here to experience polarity and to experience bliss and experience joy. So please, dear beings, stay in your lane, stay focused on what is important to you. And that is how you ripple that light out. That is how big changes are made by each individual being here. It's not the big things that you do, it's the little things that you do every day that impact the frequency of this planet. And we know sometimes this message is not received very well, but when we say stay in your lane, we're not saying stay small. We're saying stay focused on your frequency and shine your light as bright as you possibly can shine your light. I
Wow.
hate it when I get that message.
Well, I just loved it. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes in a very simple message, and it helps me to come back to center and go, oh yeah, yeah, that's good advice for me. Yeah, you know.
Pretty shocking too, because it is for me. I've noticed the times when I've gotten really off track. And I will hear this booming voice, and that's how I know I'm way off track, and it will be outside of me, it's not in my mind, and it's like the whole earth shakes, and I look around to see if anybody else can hear what's happening, and nobody else apparently can hear, but I know I'm pretty it's either God or it's Metatron, and one of the messages they gave me, well, 2 messages they gave me, like, 10 years apart. One was, "Stay in your lane," and what I was so worked up about was not in my lane. And then another time I was super worried about my daughter and I got really angry at God and I was just saying, God, do something. Why aren't you helping my kid? Like, you need to interfere. Like, I was so angry and I was just pumping gas, and this loud, booming voice comes through. And it just said, if I fixed everything, what lesson would she learn? And I was like, "Holy crap." But they're just these little messages, but instantly it's like, "Okay."
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to ask a bunch of trivial questions, but this just popped in because you've mentioned a big booming voice. And when I was about 10 years old, one of the main early events in my life took place. And it was a big booming voice that came through. And that is when this voice told me, this is not the way it's supposed to be, and it doesn't have to be this way. And then I got a huge light packet and this sequence of visions that hit me. I was only about 9 or 10 years old, but I remember it as vividly as if it happened 5 minutes ago. I know that there could be a lot of beings out there that could have a big booming voice, but with the connection that Metatron has confirmed, I'm wondering if that was him that was talking.
So as you were talking, he was saying that was me in and his birth team, Marty's birth team. So that was me and them. And
Okay.
and and what he's saying is a lot of the big booming voices often are him, Metatron, and Source. And it's not meant to scare us, but it's meant to get our attention and redirect us because we are getting off track. We're getting off purpose.
Okay. Well, what was funny to me looking back on it was that I didn't freak out at the time. It was an amazing experience, totally out of the norm. And my vision changed. I heard this dialogue. I saw these visions, and it was just cool. I mean, I was just a little kid, but I was thinking, wow, this is neat, and uh, I was left a little bit, confused afterwards, going, well, what am I going to do with this? Because I know I couldn't talk to my family, and so. But yeah, it's really interesting after all these years now to finally confirm that that's who it was. And so, thank you for helping me put those pieces together.
You're so welcome. And I find it interesting too that a lot of the people that I've met up with, especially later in life, once I committed to walking this path, I have met up with so many people, and it's like I feel like I know them instantly. You were one of them, and I've met some other beings, and we all have Metatron in common.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
find that interesting.
It is. It is. I've always called those soul families. I think that's what it is
Yeah, I do too.
because
I totally do.
all right. So is there any other messages or comments or anything that you or Metatron would like to make?
Let's see if there's anything else Metatron would like to say. We would like to ask you to all please put fear aside and connect with us. Ask to connect with us. Ask to be with us. Ask for guidance from us. Connect with us, dear beings. We are here to guide you. We are here to make your life easier. We are here to bring in comfort in your body, comfort in your everyday experience. So please put aside your fears, dear beings, and reach out to us. We will not scare you. We will not interfere with your free will.
Yeah. And those are the best ones. All right. I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what is the Metatronic color healing. Could you explain that? Because I'm sure there's people out there that would like to find out what that is and maybe have a session.
So it's interesting. So the Metatronic color healing, it is obviously Metatron comes through to do the healing. So it's similar to Reiki in that I channel energy through me. And we look at where you might have blockages in your body, where you might have discomfort in your body. But Metatron is really good at figuring out what's behind that energy. So is it the way you're thinking? Is it an experience that you've had? What is it that is causing any kind of blockages in your body? It could be something from a past life. So sometimes he brings in past life healing. He brings in what he calls editing scripts, which is editing belief systems, thought processes, things that are keeping you small. And he incorporates color. Color and geometric shapes are huge for him. So he incorporates a lot of color healing as well. It's very interesting. And I tend to talk a lot because it's just Metatron coming through, talking and helping you. He's really good at helping unravel knots, is what I would say. He's really good at that.
Wow. Okay, that sounds phenomenal. And would you like to tell people a little bit about your crystal store? Because that is amazing.
Yeah, so thanks. I love crystals. That's one of my kind of like what got me into this a little bit is my love for crystals, which I've, loved my whole life. We do have a shop, Heather's Healing LLC.com. You can find us there, find me there. My boyfriend's my partner. We've been in business since June of 2019. So if you'd like to buy crystals, you can go there. We also do live shows on Facebook. We have an Etsy shop, same name, Heather's Healing LLC, and just throwing it out there, holding space to eventually have a physical space to do live healings. And
I can personally vouch for the quality of your crystals and everything. You've got so many that are so magnificent. Of course, I would go broke buying all the ones that I want, but yeah, you've got a wonderful selection. And so I
well,
really hope people do come and check it out and also check out your healing and everything else.
yeah, I
So,
appreciate that.
all right. You mentioned a little bit ago that you worked with both angels and fairies. And I was wondering if you could give us some specific stories about your interactions with them, because that is something that is very interesting to a lot of people.
I have one story about fairies and one story that I think is really interesting about I could be angels, could be source, but it was a divine healing that I had. But I'll start with the fairies. So when I was little, I there was a red fairy that would come around all of the time. And I think she was like a fire elemental fairy, but she wasn't little. That's the thing. Like, she was probably 2, 3 feet tall, very mischievous. She would come and, like, start pulling at my hair and, laughing and giggling and just wanting me to play with her. So, we were always interacting, blowing bubbles. She loved it when I would blow bubbles, and then she would just, like, sit and pop the bubbles. So that was always really fun, and I loved her. I was so sad when she disappeared, and also fairies don't have wings. They just it's just their energy. They just are flying or floating or whatever you wanna say. My sister was very afraid of her. She did not like the Fae realm at all. But this one particular fairy, she was always coming around. I enjoyed her. I still very vividly remember her. And I can see why people would maybe be kind of scared of them because they're kind of mischievous. Like, when she wanted to play, she was very annoying until you started playing with her. So that's my story. I mean, I've got tons, but I just really remember her. She was just bright red, fiery energy, just a delight. She made my day. I keep hoping she'll come around, and she probably does. I just don't sense her the way I did as a child. This could be angelic. I felt like this was God. Looking back now, it was probably Metatron now that I've gotten used to his energy more. So fast forward from being a kid to being early 20s. So I had a drug problem for quite some time. So I went to rehab, got cleaned up, started working a job. I was a single mom. I was super stressed out. I was in a crappy relationship. I had a crappy boss. Like, nothing was going well. And to top it off, I had a really painful jaw that and my whole face hurt. It hurt to laugh, it hurt to smile, everything hurt. And the dentist at the time, I went and saw all these specialists and they said, "Well, we're going to have to break your jaw and reset it. And you're going to have your jaw wired shut for like 6 months." And I was just like, I'm so claustrophobic. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I can't handle this. And so I just kept putting it off. It just happened one day. I just kind of had a breaking moment. I was at work again with a very toxic boss, a toxic boyfriend. I was trying to get out of this relationship, single mom. Recently, I think I'd only been clean for like a year. So everything was really overwhelming. And I remember I went out to my car and I put my head down on the steering wheel and I just was kind of crying. And I was like, God, I need help. Like, I need help. I don't know. I can't do this. And I heard in my mind, what do you need help with? And I was like, that's a good question. What do I need help with? And I was like, you know what? I can handle my boss. I can handle my boyfriend, but I can't do any of this with this pain. This pain is too much. I can't handle it. And the thought of having my jaw broke and I'm so claustrophobic, I can't handle that. And I saw these giant hands come out of the sky and gently picked my head up off the steering wheel and put it back on the headrest. And my face got hot, really hot. And then I felt my jaw shift into place. And I instantly was out of pain. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is amazing." And I've never felt such peace. I have never felt I've never felt that good in all my life, and I'll never forget it. And then the hands started going back up in the sky, and I was like, "No, no, 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 don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. I wanna go. I wanna go with you. Take me with you. Take me with you. I don't wanna stay here." And the being didn't say anything. The hands went back up. I felt fantastic, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I was, like, so excited. I wanted to run into work and tell everybody what had just happened, but then I was like, "No, you can't do that because people will think you're nuts." Um, and then I was kind of like, "Ooh, is the pain gonna come back?" It never came back. It was an amazing experience.
That is amazing. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have you ever had any interactions with what I call the star nations or the galactic?
I'm not totally sure. I think that I have, but I've worked through a lot of these fears, but I've had a lot of fears towards the galactic, so I feel like they've kind of stayed back. But recently, I've had a being, it's a female being who's been coming in talking to me about relationships and how family dynamics work for them. So I feel like there's more coming, more channeling around, yeah, relationships. What is a healthy relationship and what is a healthy family dynamic? And I've seen her before, and I know she's galactic. She's not an angel or anything like that. It's a galactic energy. So we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
All right. From my personal experience, this is what I've done, and this is what I firmly believe. Okay. And that is that you have your own free will to put it out there to the universe that you will only work with beings of light that work within the divine plan. Okay. And there are many, 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 most of the star nations that we refer to as have truly almost angelic energy.
Mm.
And so there's only a few that don't. And not all of them are bad. They're, I mean, what we would call negative or whatever. But the vast majority is very much working in the light. It might help with that little bit of fear that you have in understanding that what we call the star nations are civilizations that have been around for millions of years, much longer than we have. This is kind of the way that I put it in a very simple context. Eventually, individuals and civilizations realize that the more love and light you have in your life, the better life is. And the more darkness and pain you have in your life, obviously, the more painful it is. And pretty soon that becomes a no brainer as to which direction we want to go. Okay. And so, since they are so far ahead of us, they realized this a long time ago. And so that's why so many of them are working in the light because, hey, it's actually just common sense. I do have a close relationship with quite a few different ones in the star nations, and I absolutely love them. I consider them all friends and family. They're right there with the angelic realm and the Elohim and everybody else. When we go home, these are our brothers and sisters. They are actually our brothers and sisters here now too. We just kind of forgot who we were for a little while.
I totally believe that. 100%. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, anybody that is afraid of working with source, believe me, I've had a lot of fears around it just from my conditioning from Baptist church, the Mormon religion, but there's so much love. So work through your fears. I'm still working through a lot of mine. Totally. I lived at one time a really dark life. So I know what's on that side. I know what that side offers. And believe me that you can tell the difference between the light and the dark. It's a huge, huge difference. So I totally believe that.
Yeah. Amen. When Spirit did their divine intervention with me, the room was filled with so much love that fear couldn't exist. It literally, you could not be afraid. It literally couldn't exist. It was so thick with love. And that's when I remember literally exclaiming to myself, oh my gosh, this is what home feels like. We never get to feel this here. That is the essence of source energy, is love, pure, unconditional love to a depth that is phenomenal. And so I want everybody to just rush headlong into it because there's really nothing better in the universe. So
It's amazing.
I have one more question that I'd like to ask, and that is, do you have any suggestions for people as to how they can connect with the angelic realm and maybe even the fairy.
So I would say set aside time regularly just to be quiet, or if you enjoy doing something creative, spending time just quieting your mind, or if you like to paint while you're painting, just ask your team. Say, I would like to connect with fairies, or I would like to connect with the angelic realm. Just be really open to that. That's how I started doing it. The other thing, some people love this, some people hate this, but A Course in Miracles, which it's a channeled book. I'm a Course in Miracles student. That greatly opened up my abilities, more so than anything that I've ever done. And then I've just committed to connecting with them on a daily basis. And it started out just being 10, 15 minutes, just welcoming in their guidance. And the thing that I noticed was I was already communicating with them. So I think it takes some time to kind of trust yourself and trust what the information that you're getting, because a lot of these voices, I was already hearing these voices. Like I had heard them my whole life, and it was such a part of how I work, I guess, that I didn't really question it because it was so normal. So I would also say, pay attention to what you're hearing or what you're sensing or feeling or seeing, even if it's something that doesn't seem out of the ordinary, because that could be, your guides. And the fairies, I don't see them physically the way I used to, but I do sense that they are around, and they come around when you're in a very playful way of being. I don't really know, like, if there's a specific way to call them in. I just ask for their energy to be here. I've also noticed that they come around a lot when my cats are playing. So I don't know if the cats have a part of that, I don't know, but they do come in a lot with cats. I've not documented anything. Maybe I should start documenting what I'm noticing when they're around, or what I was doing or thinking. That might be good idea, maybe for all of us to do, and just to kind of see. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit. I don't think I've ever really told somebody how to like bring in the Fae realm, or even bring in the angelic realm. It's just something that I ask and I trust that it's going to happen. And I don't think I've ever been let down.
Well, I would have to agree with you in everything that you're saying so far. I don't think that it can be understated exactly what you said, inviting them into your life. When you sincerely invite them into your life, that gives them permission to interact with you because they can't interfere with your free will. So if you're
Yep.
saying my free will is for you to communicate with me, please be a part of my life, that just opens up the whole universe to you. I set up a sacred space in my house quite frequently because we get a lot of traffic here, so to say. And so there's a lot of times we need to help beings move on and everything else. But whenever I do that, I also call in the fairies and the elementals onto my property to help with the plants and the animals because I want our yard to be a safe, healthy haven for the plants and animals and everything else. And it's amazing uh, the effect that that has had. We have so much life in our yard that is obviously flourishing. And I just look at the neighbors and I don't see anything. Firmly convinced that this works. It's really cool.
That's a sure sign that fairies are around, because I've noticed that too. And I've noticed that the more you interact with them and include them in your life, the more active they are in your life. And I've even asked them, like, when I've gone away, will you please keep an eye on my plants and on my like wind chimes and things like that. And
Yeah.
there have been times where we've had huge windstorms here, and I've came home and I've looked around at my neighbors, and like all of their patio furniture is knocked around, their pots are knocked over, but none of mine are. That was the Fae, and I do leave treats. I'll leave gummy bears or, there's this really good local lavender sugar. It's sugar that's been infused with lavender, and I'll leave some of that out. I'll sprinkle it out, and I feel like they really like that.
Wow,
I
you're
don't know.
going to have to let me know where you get that.
I'll let you
Okay,
know.
awesome. Well, see, that's a brilliant idea because I live right at the base of these cliffs and we get very strong winds here. And I never thought about asking their help with keeping stuff on the ground. You
Yeah.
know, so, yeah, I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind. That's a
Yes,
good idea.
please do.
Concerning crystals and the angelic realm and the fairy, um, can you maybe give people suggestions on how they might be able to combine these realities?
Yeah, so what I would say is what I have found, crystals help to increase our frequency. What's cool about crystals is they have their own dominant oscillatory rate that they hold. So their frequency is always really steady. I find working with crystals helps to increase my frequency. So if my frequency is a little low, or if I'm kind of in a crappy mood, but I want to connect, or if you're having a hard time connecting with the angelic realm or the fey realm, and you don't need crystals to do this. I just find that it's helpful because it does help to raise your frequency. I would say whatever crystal you're most attracted to or whatever pops into your mind, work with that and see what energies come through. I don't necessarily think that there's particular crystals for certain angelic realms, but some people disagree with that. I just trust my guidance on whatever I'm feeling and I go with that. I feel like crystals help to open up your auric field. I feel like it helps to kind of
Okay.
expand that energy and open up to let in other divine beings come through. It helps me to focus and it helps me just to kind of drop in. That's the way I work with them. I will say I do love working with tektites, so moldavite, Libyan tektites. I love those for connecting with the higher realms. So if I'm having a tough time connecting, those are my go-tos for sure. Moldavite, Libyan tektites, they're two of my favorites.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm sure people are going to find that very helpful. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank everybody for joining us as well. And may you all walk in peace, love, and light. And until next time, take care.